What if the reason you're feeling so drained isn't weakness, but it's the weight of not being fully honest with yourself? Not that you have to say everything, but being real about what's actually true for you. Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you counseling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Welcome back to Practical Solutions for PTSD. Today we are picking up on our Not Broken Equipped series where we're talking about the 24 character strengths that are covered in the Values and Action Survey, which, by the way, if you have not completed that and you're interested in doing it, there's a link in the comments below. I do encourage you to do it. Super, super beneficial, eye-opening, can help you not only understand yourself, but understand those around you. And it's free. So, hey, take advantage of it and learn more about yourself. It has a lot of scientific backing behind it, so definitely encourage you to jump in and take that. If this series or this concept of understanding who you are and how God has made you and those gifts that you've been given, whether character strengths or spiritual gifts, etc., if this is something that really intrigues you and you'd like to dig into deeper, I encourage you to go to my coaching page, practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough, and look through that and sign up for some one-on-one coaching. Because I can definitely help you with dig into those, figure out what your character strengths are, how you can use them in your everyday life, how leaning into them can uncover superpowers for you to help you in your healing and how you're handling trauma or difficult times in your life. Leaning into those strengths can really help you and unlock your own individual superpowers. And if that's something you'd like to do, I absolutely can help you with this. I love this topic. I say this a lot, but this truly is one of my favorites. I absolutely love talking about character strengths. So if you want to contact me again, just go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough. All the information is there on my one-on-one coaching sessions. I'd love to spend some time with you and help you figure that out. So one last time, practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough. So today we're going to be talking about honesty, which is one of the character strengths under the virtue of courage. And sometimes this is called authenticity. This is a really good one. It really helps you if you can dig into this one. It can help you to figure out what's going on and help build some trust with yourself. Because often when you've experienced trauma of some form or the other, you don't trust yourself as much as you used to because there's something inside of you that broke or you're dealing with something that's hurtful, that's difficult, and you have to learn to trust your own judgment again. And so this can really help with that. Now, when I say honesty, we're a little more aligned with authenticity. So to reframe this a little bit, we're not talking about being perfect. We're not talking about sharing everything with everyone. Like you have to be honest and tell them everything. No, you don't. That's not what we're talking about. It's definitely not about self-criticism, about the thoughts or feelings that you think or you feel. We don't want to lean into the negative self-talks. We're definitely not talking about that. So at its healthiest, honesty, or what it's sometimes called authenticity, means living in alignment with your values, what you know to be right, and who you really are on the inside. It's recognizing what you feel and what you believe and how you want to show up and letting that guide your choices. Just a few weeks ago, I was looking at my life, which is a little bit chaotic and crazy. Full disclosure, it kind of tends to be that way. But it was getting a little bit out of hand. And I'm like, okay, is this really how I want to live my life? The answer was no. And so it's figuring out where I can make decisions and choices to be closer aligned to the values that I want to live out in my everyday life. So when you're doing that, sometimes it's speaking honestly to yourself or to someone else. Sometimes it means holding on to your truth until it's a safe time to release that. So it doesn't mean that you're automatically just going to tell everybody what's going on inside. And you'll need to make sure that it's the right person to talk to, it's a safe person to talk to, a safe time, the right time, all this kind of stuff that goes into that. But just kind of clarify that a little bit. Now, there's an old quote from one of the Shakespearean plays that says, "To thine own self be true." And this leans a little bit into what we're talking about today. Now, I'm not talking about situational ethics or moral relativism. I firmly believe that there are objective, stable truths, and they're truths that we can anchor ourselves to. And there is personal awareness and discernment in how those truths are lived out in real time in everyday life. So, what we're talking about is awareness, noticing what's actually going on inside of you, and using some discernment. Is this fear talking? Is this trauma that I'm dealing with? And using some wisdom and some conviction to help guide those emotions and feelings inside, not to deny them, but to acknowledge what's going on, but then, okay, how does this align? So I know sometimes when I was going through some of the darkest times in my life, I would feel, now Nora's the same feeling, not facts, but I felt that God just did not like me. Like, how could he love me and just be a good God and me going through all of this? But I knew there were anchoring truths that I could anchor myself to, and that was that God is good all the time and that God loves me. Those are two anchors that I tied myself to, and regardless of where I felt I was in the mix, I knew those things to be true. So I could realign my life with those values and truths that I knew were absolutely fact. So kind of like a compass, regardless of where you're standing, the compass, assuming it's working, is always going to point to true north, right? So you may be facing completely south, but that doesn't change where north is. But understanding, I feel like I'm pointing north when I'm actually pointing south. I look at this compass, I'm being true about it, being honest about how I feel, but I can align myself with what's going on by the truth that is there. By being honest, this compass is pointing north, and I can align myself to those values. So one way to put that "to thine own self be true," to put it in our own language in a context of what we're talking about here, is being honest what's real for you and let that guide your choices wisely. How am I really feeling? Is this decision going to make me feel really overwhelmed? Is this is this helping me to live out the values that I hold dear and true? Something like that. And I know I'm spending a little bit more time on defining honesty than normal, but I felt like it's important to lean into this a little bit and to help you understand what we're talking about, because this is something that could very easily go in the wrong direction. Honesty is a practice of being genuine and congruent, of letting your words, your actions, and feelings reflect your inner reality. So you're not trying to hide from how you're feeling. You're not trying to deny the thoughts that you have or what is going on inside your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health. You're not denying any of that. You're being true to that. You're being true to your values, what you hold to be important, and the absolute truths that we have in this life. You're aligning yourself with that. And when you do this, when you're honest about how you're feeling, when you're honest about what's valuable to yourself, and you work to align yourself with that, this is how you can start rebuilding self trust. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a trauma can erode trust in your own experience, in your own reality, in your decision making ability, whatever that could be. Honesty helps rebuild that. It's letting you recognize this is what I feel and this is what I need. Because for however long, I know with PTSD, I've told you this before, I'm a class A suppressor. I denied for so long, like I'm not supposed to feel this way. And so I would deny it and suppress it, which then was a big contributor to me developing PTSD. Bringing honesty alongside and using this in my recovery and being honest about how I felt helps rebuild trust with myself and helps my body to heal. So when we're talking about honesty with yourself, with all this thing going on, we're not talking about moral judgments or saying, making sure that you're couching things in the right way. It's about being clear with yourself, even in small moments. It's what allows you to make choices that actually serve your well being rather than just appeasing others or avoiding conflict. Now, we've been talking about boundaries on this podcast here just recently. This fits really, really well here because you can look at this and say, okay, am I making this decision to do X, Y, and Z because someone is pressuring me to do this? Does it align with my values? Does it align with my boundaries? How does it really serve to help me get well and to take care of myself and those that I love and the mission that God has given me? Or am I doing this to appease others and avoid conflict? And being honest with yourself in that moment can really help you, one, to build trust with yourself, and two, to heal. So, what does this look like in everyday life? And we've talked about some really grand ideas and theories here, but let's break it down to what it looks like in day to day living. So you could speak your needs gently but clearly to the people in your life. Maybe someone is being particularly demanding. And you're like, look, I really need some time to myself just to step away and clear my mind. I will be back. I'm not abandoning you, but I need to step away for a while. Maybe it's acknowledging your feelings without judgment, even to yourself. This was a really eye-opening for me and remarkable. I cannot believe the difference it made for me when I faced a situation and I said very honestly to myself, I feel betrayed and I feel deeply wounded and like someone stabbed me in the back. This is how I feel. And when I let myself say that and acknowledge it and just sit with that for a minute, I recovered from that situation so much faster than I had to similar situations in the past because I was honest and acknowledged how I was feeling without judgment. I didn't say, Lori, you shouldn't feel that way, or how did you get yourself in this mess? I wasn't judging. I wasn't critical of myself. I was just honest with how I felt in that moment. It makes a ginormous difference. Another thing you could do in real life and everyday life is choosing not to over explain or justify your emotions. You're just being honest about it, being open about it, authentic about how you're feeling, what you're dealing with, even if it's just with yourself or someone else, but you don't have to explain forever and ever and ever or justify. This is how it is. Another way that honesty and authenticity can show up in your everyday life is just admitting I don't know or I need help. Now, this was another big one for me, is actually going to someone and say, I feel broken inside. I need help. Can you please help me? Oh, that was terrifying. But actually doing it made a world of difference. And by the way, this is something that you could do with me if you want me to help you with some one-on-one coaching, is come to me to say, hey, look, I need help with this. And I would love to be able to help you. So just a side note, just popped into my head. For people with anxiety, honesty might look like naming your fear rather than pretending everything is fine, which can be scary. But even if you can only name it to yourself, just being true to yourself, like, I'm really afraid of talking to this person. It's causing me a lot of anxiety. I don't know how to deal with it. Just being real to yourself can make a big difference. For people with depression, honesty may mean noticing that your limits and allowing yourself to rest instead of forcing productivity. Now, I know there's a balance here because you can, like, quote, give in to the depression and go crawl in a hole and pull a blanket over your head and just forget the world exists. That's what you really want to do. At least it's what I wanted to do often. You don't want to go that far, but maybe you can say, hey, look, I just really can't handle a 5-hour social engagement right now. I'm not up to it. And that's okay. It's okay. You can go for 30 minutes or an hour, or maybe if it's just really bad, you say, hey, look, I would love to be there, but right now I just can't. And so please know that my thoughts are with you. I hope you have a fantastic time, and maybe next time I can catch it. Just be honest. It can make a big difference. For seasonal depression, honesty may be acknowledging that low energy is part of the season and giving yourself permission to adjust expectations. Now, I haven't spent as much time on spring, summer, seasonal affective disorder as I did fall, winter. I need to have another episode on that because we are just about to step into summer and I want y'all to be prepared. But acknowledging the fact that this time is difficult for me and adapting accordingly, just being honest and giving yourself some room to be flexible within that can really help with recovery. And it helps build trust with yourself again, where your body realizes that you're going to respect its limits, and it kind of lets down a little bit of that guard. Because it's not like, okay, every time you turn around, I'm pushing myself beyond my limits. Your nervous system knows that, and you have to retrain your nervous system to understand that you're respecting those limits again. So, honesty is less about dramatic confession and more about aligning with your own inner reality. This is what's really going on inside, and I'm trying to support that the best that I can. Now, again, dark side to every character strength. Honesty also has a shadow side. When it's overused or misunderstood, honesty can turn into bluntness that harms relationship. And I have seen this many, many times. It's like, I just say what I think. I'm just an honest, upfront person. Honesty does not excuse rudeness or being unkind to people. That's just wisdom according to Owens. Now, sometimes you have to be frank and very open about things, but it doesn't mean you have to be blunt and rude and just put it all out there. Sometimes you use some wisdom and discernment in that. Another thing that happens on the dark side of honesty is that you can overshare when you feel unsafe. So if honesty is one of your character strengths and you're in an unsafe position, you're going to recognize this in yourself. You just rattle on and on and on and on and tell everything about everything. And you don't necessarily need to, but you just keep talking because you feel unsafe. Another thing that you're going to do on the dark side of honesty is a rigidity or self-righteousness. Like, I'm more honest than everybody else. I just tell it like it is. I don't sugarcoat it. And you become a little bit of self-righteous in that position or very rigid. The fourth one is guilt when feelings are perceived as wrong. So as I mentioned before, I was a class A suppressor, and I also denied a lot of how I felt. And a lot of that was because I was afraid what I was feeling was wrong. I shouldn't feel this way. And so I need to try to work on my feelings to get them where I need them to be before I admit how I feel. And so that's where honesty overdone can get you there. And what this could look like for a trauma survivor is honesty can sometimes be muted as a survival strategy, which can feel like a loss of yourself. If this is one of your character strengths and you feel like you're in a position where you're trying to survive what you're in right now, you're suppressing that honesty because it's a survival strategy, but then you feel like you're betraying yourself. For someone dealing with anxiety, honesty can be weaponized against yourself. I'm lazy, I can't handle this, I should be doing more. And it's this constant criticism in your head about what's going on. For depression, honesty might actually feel unavailable. Like, I just can't get there. I don't even know how I feel. And it can erode trust with yourself when you're in that situation. So here's a little bit of a reframe. Honesty is a practice, not a verdict. So you're not failing when your truth is complicated or slow to emerge. You may not quite understand what's going on with yourself right now. You may not we are super complex beings, folks. Emotions, especially when you start digging into mental health, emotional health, it can be so complex and so difficult to figure out. And it's okay if it doesn't just pop out and automatically you're not failing. It just takes a little bit to get there. So how can we use honesty to help us with trauma? So for PTSD, honesty can rebuild agency, can give you a little bit of place where you're making decisions, you're naming your feelings, you're expressing the needs that you have, you're reclaiming control over your experience rather than being hijacked by triggers or avoidance. For anxiety, honesty helps interrupt rumination. When your brain's going down those dark rabbit holes, naming what's real in the moment, I feel afraid, and that's okay. Just say it, and it's okay. Naming it, just laying it out there, can help you to be able to stop that downward spiral. For depression, honesty provides clarity about limits. So recognizing your energy, recognizing your capacity, your feelings, allows you to pace yourself rather than push through and burn out. Now, again, like I said, you don't want to go crawl in that hole. I mean, maybe you need to for 5 minutes, but put some limits on that. You don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but you also don't want to act like you're just on top of the world, because you're not. You need to be honest about that and align your energy and your capacity, what you're committing yourself to, accordingly. For seasonal depression, honesty supports self-compassion. So you're like, this is just a really bad time for me, and be honest about it. And just acknowledge that and then adapt accordingly. So honesty doesn't erase fear or sadness. It brings them alongside you in a safe fashion. You just acknowledge this is really bad. It's not going to take away the bad thing, but being there beside it in a safe fashion. So there's some ways you can grow and develop honesty, and one is to align small actions with internal truth. So every tiny decision, saying no or pausing when needed, helps build that trust with yourself again. Number two is to name feelings without judgment. And this can be hard if you're one of those people that feel like you have to align yourself with the feelings that are, quote, right feelings. Feelings are just feelings. You feel them, just say it. I feel tired, I feel anxious, I feel sad. If you can't say it out loud, maybe you can journal it. You don't have to tell everybody, tell yourself. It's statements of reality. It's not a weakness. Number three way to grow it is reflect before sharing. So again, this would be dealing with the dark side of just being too blunt or too whatever, uncoded, and just throwing it out there. So you might want to reflect on things before. How is this going to go down? Is there a better way I can say that? Is there some stuff that I just don't need to say at all? And just, keep it to myself for right now. So decide what's safe and helpful to share, and honor boundaries that have been laid by others and yourself. Honor your own boundaries. And practice self-honesty first. This is number 4. Check in with yourself before responding to the world. Honesty begins internally. It begins with you, inside your heart. So check in with yourself first. Honesty is not about being fearless or perfect. It's about being true to yourself in ways that are safe and sustaining. So again, you don't have to be fearless. You don't have to throw everything out there. There may be some things that are really hard to share, and that's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to share everything. And you definitely don't have to share everything with everyone. Find that safe person. If you can't find a safe person right now, just grab a journal, write it out, whatever, however you want to deal with that for yourself. But be true to yourself first. Be honest with yourself. So as we close, remember this. Honesty is not a performance. It's aligning yourself to your inner and outer worlds. So making sure that what you're doing and the actions that you're taking are supporting what's going on inside. If honesty feels hard right now, that doesn't mean the strength is missing. It may simply be waiting for safety, time, and compassion. A place that you can do it and be safe. And as I often do with these character strength episodes, I'm going to give you a reflection that you can take away with you. Where in your life could you practice one small, safe act of honesty with yourself or others this week? Just one small, safe act of honesty. You don't need to act on it immediately. Think about it for a bit and then see where you can put it into action. And thanks so much for being here. I'll see you again next time. If you would like some help in mapping out your character strengths and how you can use them in your everyday life to turn on your superpowers, go to practicalsolutions4ptsd.com/breakthrough and schedule your appointment today. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.